Have you ever wanted to bring up a disagreement with your manager but didn't really know where to start? In this video, I'm going to be going over how to bring up disagreements with your manager and manage your expectations effectively. Let's get into it. Hopefully you and your direct manager don't have that many disagreements. I know at this point in my career, I don't really have many disagreements with my direct manager. I might have disagreements with corporate policies, and your manager sometimes can help you with them, but it really depends on what it is, how rigid it is, and if there's any flex or move to what you're trying to do. So, in bringing up disagreements, the first step is always to acknowledge it. So you need to acknowledge that you're displeased with something. And if this is being displeased with your manager, you obviously need to do this with some emotional and social intelligence, because saying, hey, I have a problem with you, not I have a problem with this, the person could get very defensive, especially if they tie their identity to their work performance, which if they were an engineer before they became a manager, that's kind of possible. So you have to be very cautious when you're bringing things up, and you need to offer the person an out. So I'm trying to make this a generic piece of advice, because there's obviously lots of little ways you can play this, but you need to bring up, acknowledge the disagreement or the thing that you are having problems with. And then the next step is effectively to start negotiating. So it's like, all right, what's the problem here? Okay, now the thing is in the open. All right, now what can we do to fix this problem? So for personal example, I'm trying to get promoted. I've been asking my direct manager for help. He's been very helpful, and we're learning more about this process because I'm getting high up enough that the process now changes, and I don't really understand it. It's kind of opaque on purpose, and he's been helpful. And this isn't a disagreement with him. I'm more having a disagreement with the process in this particular instance. And again, I'm not taking it personally. I'm not getting offended in any way, nor is he, because the way that I'm broaching these topics is really just more, not really venting, but just trying to get my point across and not really point at anyone. There's no finger pointing going on when I'm having these discussions. It's more like, hey, I'm having this problem. Can you help me with this problem? Because this requires your buy-in. So it's, in essence, it's like a second order disagreement with him, saying, hey, what's the problem here? Why isn't this working this way? So there's an example of how I'm handling it. So we really just need to bring up acknowledging the disagreement and then start negotiating. And third, if you can't get anywhere, you either have to source an outside party. I definitely wouldn't jump above your current manager, like go up to like your 2-up manager. That you got to be very careful with that, because if you're having a disagreement with a person and you've gone above them, that probably will add fuel to that fire. So that's not something I would typically recommend someone to do unless it was appropriate. And as you get further into your career, you'll start to get a feel for what's appropriate and what's inappropriate, as well as the players and the politics in your particular organization, because every organization is unique. So here's another one. This is actually a pretty typical disagreement. So another example is when you have too much work to do. So you've been overburdened with work and you have to level set expectations with your manager and have a disagreement about not working too much. So I'm a salaried employee, and it's like, all right, well, I'm in a rather unique spot where there could be overtime, but it's not really authorized right now. So I haven't had to deal with this in years, but the way that I used to deal with this is, okay, you want me to get all these things done. All right, well, there's only so many hours in my day. So here's the list of things. How would you like to prioritize this? I'm only going to be able to get this many things done during the allotted time, and then I'm going to go home. So it really comes down to, here's the list. Can some of these things wait until next week, or are they all super urgent and need to happen right now? Because if that's the case, it sounds like we need to have more people in the loop on this, because this is not something I can get done by myself in the time frame allotted. So this will basically take the onus off of you and give it to your manager and empower them to decide what's going to get work done. Because I definitely have had this blowback in my face where I've made a decision on, oh, I'm just not going to do that. And then the person who assigned me that work, because it was in a group and I'm getting assigned tasks from lots of people all over, it's like that person really got offended that I didn't do that work. So the next time around when this happened, I fed it to my manager and I was like, hey, this person's trying to get me to do this. I thought the priority for my time was this. And then the manager can go have that fight, and then it can't blow back at me because the manager is the one making the decision. So this is kind of where you're starting to get into the politics of things, but that disagreement now doesn't have to happen with me and my manager or me and someone feeding me work, because I will have my manager go basically have a proxy fight on my behalf while also reducing my cognitive burden in terms of figuring out what to do with my time. Now, obviously, you have to take this all with a grain of salt for your particular situation and how your work is fed to you. But it really just comes down to acknowledging there's a problem, starting to negotiate, coming up with creative solutions, offering it up to your management as, all right, well, here's what I want to do. The last point I'll say about this is I never go to my management with only problems. So if I see a problem, I take it upon myself to go come up with a creative solution for that problem, and then I present that solution, or I should say potential solution. Because the next thing that I do is I further empower my management to not use my solution. I overtly will say, hey, here's a problem, here's my potential solution. I will not be offended if you want to go down a different path. I might offer up some other paths that I've thought of and why I was not recommending them. So it's kind of like, seeing several steps ahead. This is what a more senior engineer would do. Okay, we could go down that path, but there's a problem over here or over here. And that's really the value that the senior engineers have. They can kind of think further ahead. So I'm going to my management with, hey, here's a potential solution, empower them to take a different choice, while also putting some small guardrails in place if they try to take a choice that I think is suboptimal. But again, I'm just here to get things done. I don't tie my opinions to my identity, but that's a pretty unusual thing in an engineering organization. People usually wrap those two up pretty tight. So I have to overtly tell people around me, hey, you're not going to offend me if you want to go use something else. Because otherwise they kind of have to coddle the situation to make it seem like they're doing your thing, but they're totally not. So it's just a situation where everyone's just happier now because it's like, all right, well, here's a solution. I'm not coming to you with problems. You don't have to have disagreements about that. It's like, no, here's a solution. What do you want to do about this? I'm leaving it to you. I presented it to you. So you need to learn what sort of management style your managers have. So if they want to be more hands-on or micromanage you, these are the ways that you can kind of not push back, but you can empower them to feel like they're micromanaging you while also not letting it get to you nearly as much. I found that helpful several times in my career, and I definitely wanted to pass that on to help you get your manager on the same page. I trust you learned quite a bit about how to get your manager on the same page from this video. If you want to learn more about emotional intelligence, or EQ, you can check out my playlist up here. Or if you're ready to move to the next step, which is social intelligence, or SQ, you can get started with that playlist down here. Or you can keep getting the results that you've been getting. Totally up to you. Hope to see you soon.